Summary of Chapter 21, Underground River. Han Sen secretly follows Son of Heaven, Luo Tianyang, and their hired thugs on a dangerous expedition into the mountains. The group claims they are hunting a mutant creature, but Han Sen suspects there is more to it. After days of travel, they arrive at a deep canyon with an underground river. The hired men are forced to cross in inflatable boats. Midway through, a giant, python-like monster emerges from the water, attacking and capsizing the boats. Chaos ensues as some try to flee, but Luo Tianyang ruthlessly kills deserters, forcing the rest forward. Han Sen, realizing they are being used as bait for the creature, desperately rows for his life. As more men are devoured, he prepares to use his sacred blood beast soul armor if necessary. Chapter 22, Broken Egg. As the survivors struggle to cross the river, Han Sen jumps into the water and uses his sacred blood armor to swim across safely. The giant black snake continues attacking, but after devouring most of the hired men, it stops. Only 7 people, including Han Sen, make it across alive. Son of Heaven and his gang then cross the river safely, confirming that the snake is no longer a threat. They force the survivors into a cave, where they find a nest with 2 sacred blood creature eggs. Just as they retrieve the eggs, another massive snake emerges from a nearby pool. Son of Heaven grabs the eggs and runs, using the survivors as bait to distract the furious snake. As he reaches the cave's entrance, Han Sen ambushes him, landing a powerful punch that sends the eggs flying. Han Sen catches both eggs and runs toward the river. However, another giant snake appears from the water, blocking Han Sen's escape. Thinking quickly, he pretends to cooperate and throws one egg to Son of Heaven, who catches it and ly for the egg to break all over him, leaving him stunned. Chapter 23, Obsidian Dragon. As the giant snake turns its attention to Son of Heaven, who is covered in the broken egg, Han Sen takes the opportunity to escape with the remaining egg. He rows across the river, flees into the forest, and avoids being tracked by Son of Heaven and his gang. That night, Han Sen cooks the egg over a fire, sealing it with mud before roasting it. When he eats it, he discovers that it belonged to a young obsidian dragon, a sacred blood creature. Unfortunately, he doesn't receive a beast soul, but he gains 5 sacred Geno points, raising his total to 13. After several days, Han Sen returns to Steel Armor's shelter and learns that only 8 members of Son of Heaven's group survived. Many were killed by the obsidian dragons, and Son of Heaven refuses to discuss the failed mission. However, some of the hired thugs who survived reveal parts of the story to Qinjuan and Fist Guy. Meanwhile, Son of Heaven secretly begins searching for Dollar, suspecting him of causing their downfall. Han Sen, relieved that no one connects him to Dollar, catches a primitive creature as a cover story for his absence. Son of Heaven, too focused on revenge, doesn't suspect him. Later, Han Sen teleports out of God's sanctuary to visit his family, but at the station, Qinjuan intercepts him. She forces him into a combat challenge, telling him that if he can withstand 50 moves without falling, she will leave him alone. Han Sen, knowing he can't reveal his full strength, cautiously accepts. Summary of Chapter 24, Sneak Attack Skills. Qinjuan, furious at Han Sen for his past actions, challenges him to a fight. Expecting a formal start, she is caught off guard when Han Sen immediately punches her in the nose. Shocked, she steps back, unprepared for such a direct attack. As she recovers and tries to speak, Han Sen punches her again when she says continue, making her collapse in pain. Enraged, she throws the rules aside and beats him down. After the fight, Qinjuan reviews the combat footage before deleting it. Initially believing Han Sen had just caught her off guard, she notices something unusual. His movements are untrained, but his attacks are unpredictable and emotionless, much like an assassin's. Despite his poor fighting skills, his ability to conceal intent and strike explosively is remarkable. Unknown to Qinjuan, Han Sen had developed these instincts out of necessity. As a beginner in God's sanctuary, he had no support and was forced to hunt alone with a basic alloy dagger. To survive, He learned how to ambush creatures without alerting them, honing his ability to strike without giving away his intentions. Over time, these survival skills became second nature, making him highly dangerous despite his lack of formal combat training. Summary of Chapter 25, Ghosthaunt. Qin Zhuan reviews Han Senator's combat data and notes his above-average physical stats. She assumes he has high genopoints or practices hyper-geno arts but dismisses it as unimportant. Labeling him as despicable due to his sneak attacks, she plans to teach him a lesson next time. Meanwhile, Han Sen decides to improve his fighting skills and visits Ares Martial Hall, a renowned training center on Roka Planet, run by a veteran known as Old Devil. The Martial Hall offers different training levels, with the most expensive special classes costing millions. Han Sen specifically seeks to learn Ghosthaunt, an advanced martial art his father once wanted to master but couldn't due to physical limitations. His father also mentioned that Ghosthaunt is particularly effective against women, an idea that intrigues Han Sen, especially after his recent encounters with Qin Zhuan. Since Ghosthaunt requires a high level of physical fitness, Han Sen undergoes a test. His results impress Old Devil, who assumes Han Sen has nearly maxed out his ordinary, primitive, and mutant genopoints, unaware that his strength also comes from sacred genopoints and jade skin. Han Sen pays the hefty fee of 1 million and is led to a private screening room to memorize the technique. Watching Old Devil demonstrate Ghosthaunt in a hologram, Han Sen is stunned, realizing exactly why his father had emphasized its effectiveness against women. Summary of Chapter 26, Mutant Three-Eyed Cat. Han Sen begins training in Ghosthaunt and realizes it is a powerful close combat martial art, designed to entangle opponents like a snake. Initially worried that using it against Qin Zhuan would make him seem even more perverted, he soon recognizes its practical advantages in wrestling and self-defense. Thanks to his sacred genopoints and jade skin training, he adapts quickly and starts practicing within half a month. However, knowing that close combat techniques are dangerous without mastery, he decides not to use Ghosthaunt in battle yet. Returning to God's Sanctuary, Han Sen checks on his primitive copper-toothed beast, which has evolved into a mutant creature. He plans to continue its evolution into a sacred blood creature. Meanwhile, Son of Heaven's gang has stopped guarding the steel armor's shelter entrance, as they have no idea what Han Sen's dollar really looks like. Venturing deep into the mountains, Han Sen looks for mutant and sacred blood creatures to hunt, as he no longer needs ordinary or primitive genopoints. He decides to test the mutant three-eyed cat beast soul he obtained from Qin Zhuan. Expecting it to be a powerful ally, he summons the cat NLY to find a tiny, adorable black kitten. Skeptical but hopeful, he orders it to attack a primitive triangular scale beast. However, the cat's attempt is pathetic. He merely bites the beast's tail and gets swatted away. The terrified kitten then hides behind Han Sen, shivering. After several more failed attempts, Han Sen realizes the mutant three-eyed cat is useless in combat. Frustrated, he finally notices its classification, Pet Beast Soul. Unlike fighter or mount beast souls, he has no idea what a pet beast soul is supposed to do. Summary of Chapter 27, SOS. Han Sen is frustrated after realizing that the mutant three-eyed cat he got from Qin Zhuan is a pet beast soul with no clear combat abilities. However, when the cat starts meowing around a copper-toothed beast's corpse, he lets it eat. It struggles to break the skin, so Han Sen cuts up the meat for it. Shockingly, the tiny cat devours the entire creature, leaving Han Sen bewildered about its true purpose. Spending over a month in the mountains, Han Sen struggles to find mutant creatures but makes great progress in his Ghosthaunt training. He also maxes out his primitive genopoints. During his rest, he roasts meat and plays with his cat, which he names Meow. Suddenly, a desperate man in ragged clothes appears, screaming for help. Han Sen sees a massive herd of mammal beasts, huge, tank-like creatures hazing the man. Without hesitation, Han Sen grabs Meow, abandons his meal, and runs. As the terrified man begs for help, Han Sen spots a cliff with vines, climbs up, and reaches a stone platform. The man tries to follow but repeatedly fails. Seeing the mammal beasts closing in, Han Sen pulls him up just in time. Now safe, the exhausted man introduces himself as Lin Bifeng, a wealthy individual. He offers Han Sen a Schwarzwald cigarette, an expensive brand costing over 10,000. Han Sen, recognizing Lin's wealth, jokes that the best way to show gratitude is with cash. Summary of Chapter 28, Expensive Food. After escaping the mammal beasts, Han Sen and Lin Bifeng rest on the stone platform. Lin, a super-rich man, reveals that he ended up stranded after an ill-fated sacred blood creature hunt, which cost him almost all his mutant beast souls. Han Sen realizes Lin is from Glory Shelter, while he himself is from Steel Armor's Shelter, meaning Lin is far from his usual resources and allies. The mammal beasts remain aggressive below, unwilling to leave. Han Sen learns that Lin accidentally killed a young mammal beast, triggering their rage. Realizing they might be trapped for a while, Han Sen starts charging Lin exorbitant prices for water and food, 0.000 per cup of water and per piece of jerky. Lin reluctantly agrees but tries to negotiate, promising to pay quadruple once back at the shelter. After 8 days, with no sign of the beasts leaving, Han Sen insists they must escape before their supplies run out. Lin, fearful of the steep cliffs, hesitates, but Han Sen proposes climbing partway up to find a ledge where they can walk around the herd instead of scaling the entire cliff. With no better option, Lin agrees, and Han Sen starts the climb. Summary of Chapter 29, Stormbird. Han Sen and Lin Bifeng continue climbing the steep cliff using vines. Lin, exhausted, wants to turn back, but Han Sen urges him to continue. They stop to rest on a small rock ledge, and Lin insists on waiting for the mammal beasts to leave. Han Sen, however, decides to scout ahead for an escape route. As he climbs higher, Han Sen discovers a massive nest on a rock platform, containing a giant egg, about 3 feet tall. Realizing the egg likely belongs to a sacred blood creature, he cautiously approaches and drinks its contents using a straw. The system confirms it's from a sacred blood Stormbird, though he gains no genopoints immediately. Knowing sacred genopoints are rare, Han Sen seals the hole with mud to drink more later. He descends and lies to Lin Bifeng, claiming there's no escape route, buying time to consume the egg over the next few days. The next morning, he returns to drink more. Lin, suspicious, asks why he keeps climbing. Han Sen teases him, saying he's feasting on a sacred blood creature. Lin dismisses it as a joke, unaware of the precious meal Han Sen is secretly enjoying. Summary of Chapter 30, An Empty Egg. Han Sen continues climbing daily to drink the sacred blood Stormbird egg and never encounters its parent. He assumes they may have been hunted or gone, but he remains cautious, always returning to Lin Bifeng afterward. After a few days, Lin Bifeng, tired of the extreme weather on the cliff, suggests checking if the mammal beasts have left. Han Sen, knowing they already had, convinces him to wait longer. He wants to finish the egg first. Lin grows suspicious of Han Sen's repeated climbs and finally asks what's going on. Han Sen casually admits he's been feasting on a sacred blood egg. Lin, still skeptical but curious, asks to come along. Struggling to climb, Lin Bifeng needs Han Sen's help to reach the nest. When he sees the massive egg, he's shocked and excited. He immediately punches the shell, expecting egg juice, but nothing comes out. Han Sen calmly admits, "I drank it." Lin is devastated and regrets not believing Han Sen earlier, realizing he missed a rare sacred blood meal. Han Sen, amused, reassures him, saying he'll inform him next time he finds a sacred blood egg. Lin, eager to make sure this never happens again, promises to never doubt him again and even offers to pay next time. Afterward, the two climb down to find the mammal beasts have left. They return to Steel Armor's shelter, where Han Sen parts ways with Lin, preferring to avoid unnecessary trouble. Thanks to the Stormbird egg, Han Sen gains 5 sacred genopoints, bringing his total to 18. However, he's disappointed that he didn't receive a beast soul. Back in the real world, just as Han Sen prepares to leave the teleportation station, he's confronted by Qin Zhuan, the station master. Remembering their past conflict, Han Sen groans internally. He's still holding a grudge and demands a fight.